Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is Create. Today I'm going to be covering as much as I could possibly think of in relation to trains and mechanical assemblers, how you can make automation move through the world. Alright, so there's a ton, a literal ton, if not several tons, of things that you could potentially make in the world that can run on rails in Create. A lot of things that actually you might otherwise normally be able to create with other contraptions can be made in different ways with rails. And I'm going to try and cover as much of that as I can, as you might already be aware. So let's start with something simple, the mechanical plow. This is just made with some iron sheets, some andesite alloy, and andesite casing for the default recipe. And what does it do? Well, right now, we currently have this. It's just a spinning device, a bunch of stones that I used some super glue together to pretty much just kind of, spin in a circle. And yes, you can get kind of caught up in it on occasion. Oh god, I'm going to get sick. But you can see how it can be really weird how it'll either pass through you because it's going too fast, or if you land on it just right, it'll spin you around. I'm not going to do that again. But if I stop this and I take some of these, let's put some super glue in my offhand, and some mechanical plows. This is one of the things that it can do. In fact, what direction is it going? I just forgot. It's going to the left here. All right, so we're going to stick a bunch of these on here, and I have some items that I can actually, show you how they work. Let's look in the chest. I have some torches. That's right, torches. We're going to put a bunch of these out here. I'm in creative, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to delete them now. Let's also take some rails. Actually, I'm going to pick up those torches because I just realized I didn't have it set to delete, but I can put down some rails as well. And I'm going to show you a few things that these plows can do. One, I already showed you that, when this thing's spinning, it just kind of either passes through me because it's going too fast, or I get stuck on it if I jump and land on it properly. The other thing is that it'll pick up things that normally would not be picked up by some of your automations, namely things like carts or torches and things of that nature, and it will put them into an inventory. This chest is empty now, right? So let's turn this lever on, and you can see it's also going to end up making a whole bunch of, farmland. Now I turn that off. It was going a bit fast, and you can see that because of the radius that this covers, it doesn't always hit the closest block. If I left that going long enough, it probably would have, but it did catch 3 of the torches and 4 of the rails, scoops them up. So you can use this in your automations that are on a track of some sort to, specifically if you've got a self-laying, like a cart that self-lays its own track or something, you can actually have it lay down its own redstone torches. You can have it lay down its own rails, as well as powered rails, controller rails, things of that nature, and pick them back up with one of these. So anything that's in front of it, as it moves forward, it will then start picking those up. Now the other thing that it does is it acts as a cow catcher. If you're not familiar with what a cow catcher is, it's something that will, knock cows away on a train. Old trains had these like big narrow triangular grills on the front, one might say, and it more or less was to help herd and push livestock off the train tracks, hopefully without doing too much, if not any, injury to them, so that it could pass through. And this is kind of the same idea, as that it will also do that, but it might also make farmland in the process. Alright, so let's move on to the next thing here that I have, and that is a mechanical saw. This is made with a few iron sheets, iron ingot, and an andesite casing. This can be used as part of a contraption, or rather solo. You can actually take it with you, grab a hand crank, and you can do some pretty impressive stuff. As with most things in Create, you right-click, put it down, it'll likely face you. You sneak right-click, it will face away from you, and you can see now the blade is now facing the tree. Now these just sitting there by themselves aren't going to hurt, but if active, they may injure you. If they have some kind of rotational power going to them, so you got to be careful. But in this case, let's spin this, and the entire tree gets chopped. No longer do you, and you see it actually chopped it down in a row as well, away from the cutter, which I thought was really immersive. I love that. I love that part. But if you want to, save yourself a little bit of axe cutting and you don't want to have some kind of automation, you can actually just take a couple of these with you and you can cut yourself down a forest. You're probably wondering at this point, why in the world am I showing you these two items? Well, this one I already told you, you can actually add your contraptions to start picking up things like rails and redstone torches or regular torches, or even placing them as it goes down a track that it might be self-laying. This, on the other hand, can be attached to such things as this here. I have a little tree farm that I set up. This is a really basic design. Let me turn it off here for the moment. And it's basically got a mechanical saw down here at the bottom. I just put a couple of andesite casings, and of course I used super glue when I did it. So these here, you can see that there is some glue on there. It has some glue on its main base, but I still wanted to have things like this stick to it, because it's not always, yeah, there we go, there's some glue in between there as well, so that's good. But I can just still stick these here, and stick them there. Hopefully they'll stick together, there we go. I just wanted to make sure that it had glue on this side as well. And then I've got a chest on top filled with nothing but saplings. Actually, I started out with just like 8 saplings, and this is what it has turned into over time. If you want to see how much, yeah, it's been busy. Birch tree farm goes pretty good. Oh gosh, it's already multiplying. Get out of here. And then we've got one of these, a portable storage interface. Now I will show you how this works when connected to a cart assembler first. A cart assembler. This I showed off in a previous episode, but it does require some kind of wood logs, a couple andesite alloys, and redstone wire. Reason being, it respects redstone to activate and deactivate it. Now, in this case, I also have a controller rail underneath here. So essentially, it looks like this. Oh, let me get rid of the glue out of my hand here. Put that down, and then I put the cart assembler on top of it. So it's like so. And then when I activate a redstone signal near it, it will turn on both the cart assembler and the controller rail, which by the way is a bunch of gold ingots, some kind of stick, and an electron tube. Will get you 6 of those. You don't really need a lot of them. You just need to have them evenly spaced for your contraptions to constantly keep running around in circles or however you'd like them to go. But this is a really good way to activate some kind of device out of here. Now there are other ways that you can do so. You can actually use a minecart with a furnace and insert that with like a piece of coal, and then just have some powered rails or these active controller rails on your contraption tracks, and you just do that to get it started. But otherwise, you can use this to shut it off as well, and therefore this will actually slow down, if not stop, some of your carts from going any further. It's just like a regular powered rail from vanilla Minecraft, where it will slow down things that are trying to, or carts that are trying to cross it. And as before, you can also have these connected, and it will connect through them, but not when it's got a controller or a cart assembler there. So if I grab this here, you can see that these ones both light up, but that one did not, because it is considered its own specific block. It does not connect to others like those ones do. It's just a launching block. But if you do turn it off when something comes through, it's definitely going to keep, stopping there. So the idea, let's actually just do a regular standard controller. I'm going to put one down here. You can put it on any regular track, or as I showed you there, with some kind of controller rail or something, which by the way, these are only one direction. This will prevent your carts from accidentally going in the wrong way most of the time. Doesn't mean your cart's still not going to try and do it on a rail that doesn't have that, but it should help at least give it some push in a direction. Like just by activating this, it goes in a forward motion instead of going backwards or requiring a push to determine a direction. Now once you put one of these things down, whatever contraption you put on top, the first block will be attached to it. And then you just need some kind of minecart underneath, and as I showed before, some kind of lever. Activate that and boop, you can see it is now working. I can push here and it has this little contraption. Now let me actually push this back. I don't want it here. I want this. Oh, I went the wrong way. There we go. See, I turned off the lever and it actually reseated this, but did not stop the cart. This is why I'm saying sometimes it's a good idea to actually have those controller rails so that you can stop the cart at the same point as well. It's just a really good launching mechanic, but it's not always the best case. I will demonstrate that later on when we get into more trains than we do into just a little bit of automation. So, as before, you would still need to stickify things to it in order to create your little contraptions so that when they go, you don't need to worry about it as much, and they all stick together, like so. And of course, if it just ends up, oh, it's just going to keep going, isn't it? No, until it runs into something. Perfect. Let's push this back. Now here's the other thing. You notice I'm trying to push it, but it's not really going very fast. Reason being is that you have to push the cart, not the stuff on top. So that could actually cause some problems. If you can't reach the cart to push it, that could be, well, an issue. Let's turn that off and have that just kind of slow down and stop there. There we go. And of course, if it's not attached, it's not going to go anywhere. And if it is just a floating block next to it, or let's get rid of the glue. If it's a floating block next to it, or worse, in front of it or behind it, it might actually stop. Or if it parks itself in that place, and then you turn it off or something like that, it could actually destroy blocks in an area. So you have to be really cautious about that, just so that you don't end up destroying some of your base or things of that nature. I mean, this big chunky train engine you see behind me, I didn't have that right the first time, and it came through and yeah, it destroyed a large area. Anyway, let's keep going and talk about all the different devices on here. We started off with this, the mechanical saw. And then we added on a cart assembler on the side, which, as you might already know, with some glue and some andesite casing, it is now stuck in place here to these, as well as a chest is stuck in place, which has some saplings on it. On top of that, we've got one of these, a portable storage interface. Let me take that off my offhand. Portable storage interface is made with an andesite funnel and brass casing. Pretty cheap stuff once you've got brass access, which I showed in earlier episodes, but it will allow you to offload items in this setup. So what I'm going to do is start this off, and it's got on the back side a little deployer here, which I've shown you before. You just need to filter it to what it needs to do. It needs to be a couple blocks above the area it needs to plant a tree. You can actually have it going horizontally as well, but I found that this is a little bit more compact, having it just aimed down at the ground. If it's in front, it should still work, but you got to be careful that the saw still needs to come into contact with some kind of wood base for it to start cutting. So if this is too far out in front of it, it might not work as you would hope. Should, though. But anyway, I just like to have the aesthetic of it planting after the saw blade instead of in front of it. It just seems a bit silly. So if I start this, it then will try to go. There we go. And it's enough on this little tiny track to do a considerable power area. Oh, and there we go. It's taken out this entire chunk of a tree, taking that one out as well. And then as it comes through, it connects and offloads any of its resources into this hopper that I have, and then it just starts filling into this chest. Now, you don't have to have this exact setup, but it is just something that I have working so that you can see what's going on. Yes, there are some sticks. I think I might have actually just thrown those in there or something, but those don't matter. Anyway, what I wanted to show you was this. If I want to go into survival mode, just so that I make sure that I don't accidentally destroy the filter before I show it to you. I have on here a brass funnel connected to a portable storage interface, and it's running off of a mechanical belt. Now in here I have the deny list, birch saplings. You can see now it's currently taking stacks of birch saplings out. I don't want that. I just want the other stuff. So I told it to not pull out birch saplings, and everything else stays in there. Now when I turn this off, it'll stop. We only have birch saplings because that's all it's been doing. Now it might have actually had some wood or sticks or whatnot in there from its previous run if it hadn't connected yet, but it will only offload those. Now if you want, on occasion, you're going to want to be careful if you have this running all the time. As you can see here, the birch saplings will start to overflow. These might start overflowing and stuff, you know, out into the world. So you really do have to be cautious about how long you leave these things running for. If you're on a server, make sure that you turn your contraptions off before you leave for the day, so that, you know, you don't have massive piles and backups of stuff. Now the other thing is that once I clicked on here, it actually placed this block, the mechanical saw, on the ground and destroyed one of the saplings. That's why one is just floating in the world. So it then, if I do this, it will plant a new one, and when I turn it off, it'll do the same thing again once it ends up getting through this tree. There we go. And boom, it just destroyed another one, and it popped it off over here. So that's something you're going to want to be aware of on this little device. But if you keep it running for a while, then you should be good. And if you want to, you know, you could always just remove this, and then when it does do an offload, see, it's not offloading everything every time, but it should connect for a while there. It just took like a stack of birch. Just leave it like this for a while, and then you can always end up, you know, taking a bit of the birch saplings back over there. There we go. Get that off there. Now this is just an example. This is a circular example. You can have these things running back and forth, changing a lot of the options because as with most things, when you hold a wrench, you have your different options on the side here. I should actually mention before we get into the next one that we need, you've got cart movement mode. Always face toward the motion. This is basically, it's going to face in the direction that the cart goes. If it goes forward here and then takes a right, everything on it will take a right. Now, let me turn this off before I do this, because I don't really want it to be moving while I've got this thing rotating. But you just use your scroll wheel, and you can change how it goes. Pause actors while rotating, and lock rotation. Lock rotation's a bit sketchy. You're going to want to be careful. Those are more for like back and forth type things instead of a circular motion. Because you could start planting and cutting in weird areas. You could start harvesting your own tracks. All sorts of really crazy stuff could happen if you don't have it set up to what you really want it to be doing. Feel free to experiment. All right, now here I have a simple farm. This has a lot of do's and don'ts about it. You can make it do just about all the stuff you want. You notice here I don't have the controller rail underneath it to give it an auto start. So when I turn this off, what happens? A bunch of stuff just broke. As before, when you place the mechanical saw there, it placed stuff on the ground, and now the ground is dirt. It is no longer tilled soil. This is using a harvester. Harvesters are pretty darn cool items. I will show you how these work momentarily, but it's made with some simple iron plates, andesite alloy, and casing. A lot of the materials for these are very basic, so you don't need to worry too much about, getting into them. It's the advanced stuff that starts using brass that you really start to think about what accesses you really want to have. But in this small setup, I had 8 different items. Now in this case, I obviously had some beets and some corn get kind of popped off into the world because of this. But if I have some glue in my offhand and I break this here, you can see that I do need to actually sticky this to a block. And then I have that, of course, I've got a chest stickied here, and as before, a portable storage interface to offload any kind of stuff that comes out of here. And what do I have blacklisted? Well, seeds. Because the harvester doesn't actually use seeds so much. It will harvest what is there when it's at a mature level, and then it will just automatically revert it to its base version. So like if you freshly planted a seed there. So you don't actually need the seeds for harvesters to work properly. You can see I've got a lot of aubergines in here, and I've got a bunch of wheat seeds in here as well. A lot of the other plants I have are self-planting ones. They don't use seeds, but I still blacklisted those on the filter here. Remember that thing I said I was going to do because I'm in creative? Yeah, I just did it. Don't right-click on filters while in creative. But I blacklisted, there we go, any of the seeds in here, so that when these come through, it does not pull the seeds out of the chest. They stay in the chest so that they can be reused if needed. Now you can also have these come back out, and you don't really need to worry about it too much. But that's just something I thought I would share with you. Again, you can filter the results that are being pulled from this. It's actually all the way over here that it is filtering things from on this one, because it's just all connected at once. Now here's some of the issues that you might run into. The placing mechanics as well as launching. So if I press go on this, it still has some forward motion, so it's going to actually do its thing. Now if I shut this off, I break this cart, and then I put down, let's turn that on. See, nothing's happening. Turn it off, put this in place, I start it, it's going to try connecting, but there's no forward motion. This is why I was recommending the controller rails earlier. But if I give it a little push, because it's such a small creation, I can reach the cart. There we go, I can get it to where it needs to be. Now on top of this, if I grab a hoe from my inventory, let's go diamond, because, creative, that's how it works. You can then till the land, put down the items that you want to grow. In this case, let's just get corn seeds. I don't want to bother crafting them right now. We're going to put those down here. We're going to put the beetroot down as well. And there's something I wanted to show you. Let me grab some bone meal here. Now, you'll notice before, the corn is fully grown. It says on the bottom right there, fully grown corn. But you notice it's not being harvested. Reason being is that this is not a too tall item. With harvesters, you might want to take in mind that if you're going to harvest stuff like sugarcane or too tall items, you might have to harvest the upper half. And in this case, if it's on the same path as things that also need to be harvested down low, you might want to think again about that, because if you use sugarcane, then it might react differently. Let's get rid of this and put down some sugarcane. Okay, we're going to break that, put this down, put that in place, and you'll notice it just breaks and eats the sugarcane straight up. So you're going to want to raise the harvester up to the second height for 2 high crops, or 2 block high crops. You might not know first thing, so you might have to grow some of these ones to figure out which ones are a too tall item. But let's see, there you go. I now have 2 of them going, and it will only break and harvest the bottom one. It didn't actually harvest the upper one. So again, if you have something that needs multiple blocks, like sugarcane, that can be harvested, then you're probably going to want to have multiple harvesters so you can get both of the growth harvests. Otherwise, if it's something like this that only needs the top block harvested, because if I right click this, there we go, I grab the corn, and you can see that it has some sprouts here on top of that will regrow. This one only needs an upper. So it's just some of the circumstances I thought you might want to know about for setting up some simple automations. And again, this is just constantly running. So as soon as I shut it off, it will break a couple crops, which I'm not too worried about. This is a really basic setup. If you wanted to have it so that you don't need to worry about that as much, you can always modify it, make this a much bigger area, have its own like station or a different way of offloading things. But I just thought I would demonstrate this in the most basic manner I could think of. Now, again, I wanted to show you something else. If I turn that off, the cart is still going to keep going, right? Until it finally stops. Now, if I take a minecart with furnace, I can put that down, and then when I turn this thing on, you know that it doesn't have any forward motion because I pretty much destroyed the cart, so it has no remaining forward motion. Even if it stops here to offload, it usually would have one, but as it's a brand new cart, it doesn't. But as this is a furnace minecart, again, I can take some kind of coal item, take a piece, and you can get it started just by feeding it a piece of coal, and then it will go around, click the controller rail, and it's good to go for quite some, pretty much forever until it starts just making a mess or you break it or something like that. But now that it's hitting this, it's gonna be in an infinite loop. Let's talk about trains. All right, so trains, as you can see, there's one there. This is actually one as well. This is just a few andesite casings that I stuck together with a seat on top and a couple of carts. Basically, let's take some of these out here, and I'm even going to put the glue in my offhand just so I can replace this real quick and easy. I put down 2 cart assemblers that weren't too far apart. You can put them further apart, but I'm going to show you the pluses and minuses of that in a moment as well. If I put this here and I just sticky these together, and that seat was stuck already to the top, then it actually recognizes as one unit. So what I mean by that is if I pull this lever here, you notice everything jumped up, attached with both carts. And if I hit F3B, you can see that this is actually an entire item. This is the entire hitbox of this thing. It's much bigger than you might think, but you notice I'm not actually doing damage to this train, even though I'm in its hitbox. It works a little differently, but you can tell that it is just one entity from this outline at least. Now, with that in mind, you can actually have this going. Now, this is just a cart assembler on a regular rail. This one here is on one of those controller rails. So once I activate this, it will actually go in this direction, just like this one is here. And I have it powered too. There we go. And if I back up, you can see that it is now going around the corners, and it's created this little train of a sort. See if I can actually click up here. There we go. And now I'm on the seat, and I'm locked in place on the seat. So I don't need to worry about falling off or anything like that. Now, yes, these things could still go off rail if they're too fast or if the corners are too sharp, things that you need to take into consideration. So, as before, you still just sneak to get off, and then you just try and get out of the way. Hopefully you don't get run over. These things do have, pushable physics, so they will kind of push you around, especially if that big chunky train over there. I got pushed around a lot by that thing while it was running. So to stop this one in this case, I have this currently on, because if I turn off this, it will try and disembark this entire train on the first unit. So I want to actually turn off the front one. That will stop the controller rail, and it will line this up, but it needs both of these off in order for it to disembark. There we go. And now it is solid blocks in the world that I can break again, as opposed to the previous ones where I could only injure or affect the carts themselves. Now I have the same thing but longer over here on this back rail. So let's actually click this so that it is raised, and then I'm going to click this so that it gets powered. And again, it has one of those activator rail or controller rails underneath it. And you'll start noticing that it acts a little differently. What in the heck is going on here? And you can see it's a bit dangerous around corners because it comes in really far. Well, the problem here, if you look at it, is that it's just too long for these sharp corners. So you're going to want to soften the corners a bit, or make them wider. Probably add in some diagonals on them. And you might think, oh, diagonals in minecarts are terrible. Not with Create. They're actually really, really nice. Let me jump off of this, shut this thing off. On the next pass, obviously it needs to go around one more time, and then we can get going with the next demonstration. Minecart couplers. Okay, so over here I have two. Whoa, geez, that thing, it just pushes you around so much. You can see here I actually have kind of like a diagonal going on, and I only have some extra power running through it on occasion, which it gets a little bit jiggy, but you know, it still works. I'm sure people can come up with better solutions than what I did there. But I also want you to see, as it goes up and down to this, it still does kind of look like it clips into the world a little bit. Or like here, it's about to go up a ledge. It's like up off the rails. There's reasons for that I will show you in a moment. But first, let's talk about hooking cars together. So you could have like this big chunky train over here hooked up to multiple cars being towed behind it if you so desire. Now, in this case, I have these Redstone Links. I'm going to get out of the way because that train's going to run me over. Redstone Links are made with a bit of brass, redstone torch, and some kind of planks. And that will get you, was that 2 of them? Yes, gets you 2 of them, which is really what you need. You've got these here. Let me click on here. Oh god, I'm being run over. Okay, I'm off. I'm out of there. I'm out of there. Okay, so the idea is you put down 2 of these, an input and an output, in order to make one that you want to work. Let's grab, not this lever, I want a different lever. I want one of these levers. There we go. I'm going to put a lever here, and we're going to have this be the input, this be the output. So we've got, this is here, this is really far away, and it's going to activate something else. So in order for that to happen, you need to have an empty hand, sneak right click, and you'll start seeing a little satellite dish type mode. This is receiving a signal. This is sending a signal. And then you've got these things here, frequency 1, frequency 2. This is just so you can identify exactly what it is that you're going to have it be. So this is going to be my corn farm activator. So this is unique to this, and it won't affect any others that I've got out in the world that are, you know, also redstone links. Now when I click this, actually let me get a little bit of redstone. There we go, and I can put that here. You'll see that this activates stuff over there. Problem here is that I've got them right next to each other, so therefore it's constantly giving a redstone signal to it. I forgot. I shouldn't have these actually right next to itself. They're meant to be remote. So let me put this over here, and you can see that it's actually on the side, and the redstone dot now connects. Let's use our piece of corn here, and I need to just sneak right click to turn it into a receiver. And you can see it now will activate that. There we go. Yeah, don't have them right next to each other. But they're really good for activating things like elevators or just remote access stuff. Or having a whole series of things connected at once. Now over here, I've got this lever hooked up with this redstone link. Jeez, that train is so close, drifting around the corner. But I've got 2 over here, I've got 2 over here, and they've got these things here, minecart couplings. Now, minecart couplings are just andesite alloy and iron plates, and they're fun. And also janky. You got to be careful with them. They can get janky real fast if you start getting a little bit carried away. Now, in this case, I'm going to have everything turn on at once. So they should all connect together. But you need to have minecarts. Oh, train's coming. Got to get out of the way. In place. If you don't have minecarts in place, this is my biggest failure, is that I set up the huge contraption, everything's ready to go, but then I forget to put the minecarts down. So if nothing's happening, that's probably a good reason why. Now, you've already seen this is a train, and once I activate them with some kind of control, then that's pretty much how it works. So let's actually do that. I'm going to put one here, put one here. Those are now active. And then if I'm in the right spot over here, I don't think I'll get run over. But if I click on this with a minecart coupling, it then will start showing these particles of where it's affecting. Then if I click on another one nearby, boop, it creates a link. And therefore will try and keep somewhat of an equal distance between those two trains as it is. Now yes, you can keep on connecting them, all sorts of stuff, but you cannot connect them in the circle. So I cannot connect this one to that one, for example. That would actually make like a connected group. But you can connect them side to side and stuff, just it's not recommended that you do. People might think, oh, well, this is only running on one train line. What if I do 2 rail lines and I have like carts running next to each other? I mean, you can have them across from each other. It's just really going to be weird if you have to go across any kind of like turns, because then the turn radius is going to be different for the shorter rail here than it would be for the longer rail. So something to take into consideration, and I recommend against it. It's better to just use a single rail and make it look like it's got some wheels. Oh, I forgot to put the wheels on the front of that one. Oh well, it's just ignore the train. So let me get this thing actually running. I'm gonna click this. And nothing happened because I realize now that this cart, there we go, is not activated. Nothing's running. Why is nothing running? Because there's no power. I've got it all hooked up to be pushed. And we've got one of these things over here, an analog lever that is powering the rest of these rails. Now, analog levers are really good for trains because you can actually determine the speed that they're going. If they're going too fast around a corner, or they're coming into like a stop that you want them to offload their goods, as you were seeing over there with the farms, you can offload things. You can do that with liquids as well, which I showed in a previous episode. But basically, if you just right click on this, let me get an empty hand, you can start seeing on the top left there, the analog strength is increasing as I do this. If I hold the button, it will go all the way up. Now, if I sneak and right click, it will go all the way back down to nothing. And it won't actually change anything until you stop doing what it is you're doing. You notice that the analog strength is changing, but the power on the rail has not been displayed. It's not going to do it until you actually stop, and then it'll take about a half a second, then it'll update. So you can adjust it as you would like, and then that will give you some kind of speed, hopefully enough to get things going. Can I get this cart moving? Can I touch it just enough to get it to there? There we go. Nice. So now we have a nice slow rail cart system that isn't going to make it all the way around the track because there's just not enough juice. There we go. I turn it up now. All the way. Is it all the way up? No, it's not all the way up to the max. It makes it around a little easier, and now it's at maximum speed, and it should make it around without any problem at all. Now you notice it gets a little bit chunky around the corners. Yep, there we go. See, that was a little bit too fast. So I could probably get it going at about 12, and probably get it to manage to go around a lot easier with less issue. So this is something you can definitely use to try and make sharper corners a little bit more agreeable with your contraptions. Sometimes they go just a little too fast, and if you can't soften the curve with some kind of like large like diagonal, or it just looks a bit weird, you might be able to at least slow the train down so that it can do it. Just keep in mind that if you make the train longer than the curve, it might start changing directions or acting really weird. Now we've pretty much shown everything that we have over there. I'll just show a brief overview of what I've got for this chunky train. It's basically the same as these small ones, just with a lot more hooked onto it. So if I turn this off, that should stop the train. There we go. And then I turn this one off, and it will then seat the train down. And yes, I'm supposed to have these things here. Let's see if I can actually grab that. But just by holding it, you can see how much of this thing is glued together. It's pretty ridiculous, honestly. Now let's replace some of these wheels. Get rid of that. There we go. That obviously fell off, and we can add some of these in place that I left off as well. But you can see just by holding the glue how much of this is actually just being held together by some random stuff. So let me get rid of the glue, and you now can't see any of it. And inside, we've got a little roof stalker at the wheel, which is why I was constantly getting run over by this little guy here, because that's just how they do. Now, in this case, I've got a remote link set up underneath both of these so that I can actually access it a little bit easier. You can see it's down there. And then I've got another one at the back end that uses different rail identifiers so that they react differently. I turn this on, it will go. I turn the other one on, and it won't stop at this either. This is just for me to stop the train permanently, if I so desire. And these don't. This one has the cart assembler with the controller rail in it. And the one at the back does not. Oh, and I just got pushed by this thing. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this bit by bit on Create Locomotive Automation. If so, be sure to give a comment, like, subscribe, click that notification bell. Don't be afraid to stop by on Twitch. And as always, I hope you don't mind spreading the word of the mischief. Till next time, folks, I'll see ya.